great because it's hard to function when you're just flat out under stress and under fear of not remembering your lines and am I hitting my marks? Is everything going okay? Once you get over that, then you can start developing a character with some depth.
So you're speaking of fear factors. So like for you, what did you find more difficult? The remembering your lines or the kissing scenes and love scenes? And for you, like what was that like your first experience? Did you ever feel any nerves in the sense of, because of having to do those? I mean, I know how it works, but for the audience that doesn't know the way the camera stuff, everything that you see on TV, as you said, it looks all sexy when it's all done. But as you know, like you got a boom mic here and a thing here, like it's not as sexy as it is when you're putting it together. Did you ever feel a different type of pressure between learning your lines or the love scenes or the kissing scenes?
Doing scenes like that was a pleasure, actually, at least for me. Mm-hmm. And I say that in a way of, yes, you have to learn all the technical stuff to do, and you have to be able to let go of all the technical stuff that you now know, mm-hmm. to make it real, to make it look as genuine and as true and honest as you can.
Devin said she taught you how to kiss.
She retaught me how to kiss, yes, because I was. Let's save that story for after.
Okay.
Let me keep going.
Yeah.
With this.
Okay.
It was a pleasure doing those scenes, and I'm going to give much credit to Catherine and to Hunter for making it that easy to do. Mm-hmm. We all three of us had a wonderful chemistry together, and it made it a lot easier than I imagined it would be. Some people, maybe it's not the same. You might be paired up with an actor where you just don't feel a connection to them, mm-hmm. at all, and things can get really difficult, and maybe it's believable, maybe it isn't. Mm-hmm. It's happened with a lot of very well-known actors where they just get paired up with somebody and you do not feel the connection. We did, Hunter and Catherine and I, and some of the other people on the show who we were paired up with. We had a great connection, and that was, I count myself as completely and totally fortunate and blessed to have had that connection. That's one of the reasons.
I think with Catherine, you can have, I mean, I adore her so much, and I think that with her energy is such an infectious, because it's like, you know, you before you meet her, you know, you don't, a lot of times you don't know what to expect, as you know, in our business, of like what someone's going to be like, you know, and then when you do, and with her, it was like, it's always like a breath of fresh air when you see her. Like she reminds me so much similar of one of my, you know, closest friends in the business, Sharon Case. It's like when you're in their presence, you just sort of forget whatever bad shit is going on in the world or whatever, because they always greet you with such an energy. So I can totally understand of like how it was so obviously so easy. And I guess, as you said, very lucky and fortunate for you to be able to work with somebody, because obviously, as I said, you know, there's not everyone you're gonna have that chemistry with, and you know, obviously in daytime, when you're doing these love scenes, which are so vital to the storytelling of daytime soaps, you've got to have that chemistry per se on television, because the audience will know if it doesn't work.
And I say we, me, either Catherine or Hunter, and whoever was directing that day, we would come up with ways to push the envelope, mm-hmm. and see how far we could go with those scenes. And we had some fun times because we would push it to where CBS would send down a memo going, please don't do that again. Or they would try to edit it in some way where they would send a note. I'll give an example. Hunter and I had a very passionate ripping the clothes off up against the wall type of moment that Susan Flannery was directing that day.
Okay.
So we walled off part of the set, because Hunter was going to be basically topless. And we made it as genuine and heartfelt as we could, but there was a very sort of big, passionate moment. And CBS freaked a little bit because they thought it looked too rough. They thought it looked too raw.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we kind of strove to get those kind of reactions because I think the fans liked it. The fans liked that it was just really over the top for a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'll give you the story that Devin referred to, where she did reteach me how to kiss. The way Catherine and I would kiss, I'll use Catherine as the example. We made it a stage kiss,
Okay.
but we made it a very effective stage kiss.
Explain to the audience. Explain to the audience. I don't know what that means.
There was no tongue involved. There was no
Okay.
French kissing involved. We made it look like there was, but there wasn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got used to those stage kisses, even though Catherine and I made it really look really good. So did Hunter and I. So I would come home and still kiss like that because that's what I was used to. So when Devin and I first got together, she literally went, "That's not a kiss. This is a kiss." And she kissed me really deep, and all I went, "Whoa, I have forgotten how
How
to
to
kiss.
kiss.
I've gotten so used to that I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing for years that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even think about it." And she just went, "No, that's not a kiss. Let me show you how to kiss." So what I had to do, the funny thing, I went back to Catherine
Mm-hmm.
and I sat her down one morning before we started rehearsing our scene. I went, "Kelly, let me tell you a quick funny story." And I gave her a brief thing of what I just told you. I
Uh,
went, "Would you be okay if we really kissed from now on instead of doing the fake kiss like we have done?" And I didn't know if she could have gone, "No, I'd rather keep doing what we've been doing." She went, "Yeah, that's fine."
I love Catherine.
Just like that. She just went, and I went, "Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then cool. Then I don't have to go home and separate myself out and relearn how to kiss and get chastised by my new wife and all." But Kelly was very cool, very cool.
And for you, like, how do you, like, I know with certain people's preparation, and then having to turn that switch off. Did you find it difficult to turn off Ridge Forrester from Ron Moss at the end of the day?
For 2 years, yes. For the first 2 years, I did. I took all the emotional stuff home with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it churned my stomach and made me sort of feel a little sickish at home. And I went, "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep carrying around this much stuff. If we had a really emotional scene, I'd leave the studio and I'd be still there at home with that same thing." And I went, "I got to separate it. I got to separate it." The mind goes strange things, especially depending on how intense it is. And we had some intense moments. So I made a decision. When I walk out of that studio, I can't tell you one word I just said during the day, and I can't tell you anything that happened that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I did separate it out very well because I had to. But it worked. It worked for me. I could
How did
come
you?
and get into Ridge's clothes, and then I go home in Ron's clothes, and I'm okay.
Obviously, I mean, we both know this in a sense for, being on TV and being per se number one in, of course, in these. I mean, for you more than me because you've done obviously a lot more love scenes per se. How did you find that balance hard to do and also be in a relationship and have that trust between you and your, like, even per se if it wasn't Devin, but just in general, like that trust between you and your partner? Did you find it hard balance for you as an actor when you first started?
When I first started it, and throughout my acting career, I've been lucky enough to have the people in my life be very understanding what it is I do. I'll speak specifically for Devon. She was very understanding because she herself had done many love scenes and all in her acting as well. So she knew exactly what was required and how it was and what the vibe of all that is. And I would tell her exactly how things were, and maybe she got hooked on watching the show like a fan, so she would see it after the fact. And she knew Catherine very well, and it was very, very good. I was very lucky, very blessed to have. But I can tell I have other friends who
Didn't
were not so lucky, and that their spouses, whatever, girlfriend, boyfriend, married, or whatever, were not very accommodating.
I'm one of them.
And they became deathly jealous, and that would make it very, very difficult.
Trust me, man. I know.
I can't even imagine being able to work with that kind of environment. That would be horrible.
You don't want to. It would be horrible. It was, for me, after going through that myself, it was, because it comes to a point where, like, you don't even know how to function, because you're constantly, it perfects even your performance, because you're constantly thinking in the back of your mind, like, if I hold the person's hand, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing my job. Like, and if you can't accept this, then maybe we shouldn't be in this situation. But it's like, you get the ones, of course, it's that they have no problem being in the situation when it comes to being by your side on the red carpet, but then want to grill you when you're not. Like, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, I'm able to provide you with the lifestyle and the things because of my career and profession in this business, but I'm supposed to change who I am because you have your own insecurities. But that's a whole other subject. But for you, like,
what you just said is perfect. It's their insecurities, not yours. It's not even your real actions. It's all their projections and stuff onto you. So that's something they have to deal with. It's horrible for you when your spouse is jealous, and you have to walk around with that every day.
It takes a toll, man. It takes a toll.
It does.
It definitely takes a toll, because exactly where you would say, you had a hard time leaving things at work. For me, it was like, you're already under enough stress at work because of the situation. And now you got to come home, walking into your own house after a long day of shooting, and feel like you got to walk on eggshells in your own home, because you're like, you don't want to, like, it's like, I think the beauty about it for you and Devon is that, like, her being a sex symbol when you guys met, still now, and being, the top of the game of, Playboy and everything else, you already living that rock and roll lifestyle. It was almost like a match made in heaven, where you both have an understanding of, like, okay, like, this is our job. This is what we do. And it's either you accept me for who I am, but I also think the beauty about it is that when you both are in the business, and then when you come home, you really don't even sometimes even want to talk about the business. Like, you spend more time probably. I mean, I don't know about if that's the case with you guys, but, like, I know for me, like, when I've dated somebody who's been in the business, I find it easier to have, yes, you can talk about things and talk about, projects and whatever, but you more want to spend that time really getting to know each other rather than focusing on the business stuff. It's like, okay, that's what I do during the day, and at the end of the day, I'm shutting it off. Was that the case for you?
I would come home and I would be talked out. I had said my quota of words for the day. And I definitely believe that a lot of men have a quota of words. I know I do. And Devon doesn't. I don't think she has a quota of words. I'll get back to the funny part again. But she would want to talk. She would want to talk about stuff. And I just had to get to studying before I got too tired to look at my next dialogue for the next day. And I literally didn't. I would just come home and quickly go, yeah, we did this today. And then I go to my work. but we didn't talk about a lot of stuff about the show because I just basically didn't have time. I had to prepare for the next day. But it's everything I could do to see my kids for an hour, hour and a half, put them to bed, and then go on to get as much stuff as I could get done before I went to sleep. But getting back to you having a mate that didn't understand what you did, that's got to be incredibly hard. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
4.5 years, man, and then I had to make a choice, and it was like, after I made that choice, it was the best choice for me that I had to make. It was the hardest choice I had to make to walk away. But there comes a point, I think, in everybody's life or any viewer that's watching this in a relationship where it's like we have a tendency to sometimes lose ourselves for the purpose of thinking that, compromising is love. And I don't believe that, that you should have to compromise your happiness for anybody. And I think that, when you take that moment to sort of say to yourself, okay, the way that I look at relationships, it's like, I don't really believe in them. I believe in what you and Devin have. And what I call what you guys have is not a marriage. It's not a relationship. It's an empireship. And an empireship to me is where you've got a king and a queen. And where a relationship, it's more of a prince and a princess. And sometimes even a king and a princess. And if you look at like any gladiator movie, when it comes to them trying to, like that older father is about to die. And he's looking for someone to take over the kingdom. And the prince, who people think is in line to take the roles of the reins, he wants to have that power. He wants to have that prestige. But if you look at every gladiator movie, they always turn to the warrior, the guy that's willing to go into the game and fight and defend, and he earns the respect of his peoples. And I always say a relationship is similar, where you have to have a foundation where you have a king like yourself who goes out into battle, who goes out into the workplace, and he's doing his thing. And while he's doing his thing, the queen, being Devin, is the one that holds down the kingdom at home. She knows, okay, while my king is out in battle, I'm strong enough to be able to hold shit down. And Devin, who is an entrepreneur, has made her own career, made her own name, her own path. Where you find in this business, like in my situation, where you can try to explore of teaching the person the business, they can seem like they're supportive of you in your endeavors and what you're doing, but unless they've really been in the business themselves to know the sacrifice, to know what it takes to maintain a level of longevity and worth ethic, and just the sacrifices that you have to give up, you spend more time defending yourself in those type of relationships than you do in actually being in it. And that's what, for me, it was a constant of explaining. And I was just like, okay, when you have as I said, a queen like Devin, she's strong enough to say, okay, I don't need to know everything. I don't need to be in the mix of everything because I've got my own shit, and they're trying to make their own way. And I think a lot of times people in our business, why they don't work, as you say, is where you find certain partners who are not in the business, where they don't get it. They don't get the sacrifice. They don't get the fact of where, you have to have a life outside of me. But a lot of times people, they live their life through you, and I think that's where the pressure comes.
The way I look at life is it is a big lesson for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn your lessons. That's why certain people come into your life. That's why certain people take themselves out of your life. It's very often for a reason for you to learn a lesson one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And those lessons aren't always wonderful, pristine moments.
Mm-hmm.
They're very often extremely painful. But they're nevertheless, they are lessons. And if we are aware and we accept that people come into our lives and people go out of our lives to interject different things. I've become much more aware of that. Devin has too. And we have realized that we have made it possible for a lot of people to take themselves out of our life because
Mm-hmm.
we don't want that negative energy around us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I want to surround myself with positive, wonderful, loving people because I think we need that. Not just we collectively as a human race, we need that now more than ever. So learn those lessons, and whatever we've all been through, what you and I talked about with the acting, with the relationships, they've all been lessons for us, and we've all had our chance to learn or
Mm-hmm.
not. You either do learn that lesson or you'll continue to attract those kind of people until you learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Many people I know have gone through the same relationship with different people.
Mm-hmm.
And it always turns out the same way. So I look at them and go, well, what do you think is the common denominator?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be you?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be the way you're not learning something? You're not changing something about yourself?
Well, as we talked about on your show, I remember when I said to you, like everything in life is a choice, and you can either choose to be happy, choose to be negative. You can choose to be with the right person because, and I get it. People, they make, as we call, mistakes. But I always believe that it's only a mistake if it happens once. Anything after that is a choice. And if you keep making the same bad choice, exactly what you said, is it them or is it you because you're in control of what you allow and what you accept? Would you agree?
I would say you have to definitely look internally at your own motivations for things. And if you keep doing the same function and getting the same reaction, that's kind of a form of insanity because you keep expecting a different reaction when you're acting the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to change the way you're acting. It's cute. I'm watching a lot of people's comments going by.
For you, I mean, what
Cute.
would you? I mean, obviously, as I said, you guys have had this beautiful love story, and you've been able to make it work. And obviously, when other people in our industry haven't, what would you say? Advice would you give to someone stepping into this business? The advice, not only first, it's going to be a two-part question. One, longevity in the business itself as an actor and a musician. And second, what advice would you give for someone stepping into the business who's in a relationship, longevity to make it work, being in the business?
Everybody has to find their own path. It's very important to discover your own path. Now, if you are emulating somebody else in the moment, you haven't found your path, emulate somebody who you admire.
Mm-hmm.
By emulate, I mean do similar things that you think they would do or they have done. Find your own path. Everybody has to find that creative way for them. And that's not just in the work environment, that's in a relationship as well. You have to look deeper than just going out on a date with somebody. That's the surfacey part of it. You have to be honest. For me, I want to be as honest and truthful as I can. I can't stand bullshit. I'm sick of bullshit in any manner because I see people not being truthful, not being honest in the way they do certain things. And I go, how do you get by day to
Dude,
day?
dude, as I say, it didn't take coronavirus for people to be wearing masks. I think that a lot of people have been wearing masks their whole life, and now we're just seeing it with fabric on. Like, that's the difference.
Yeah, a lot of people walk around with that stuff that they just surround themselves with bullshit. And I can pretty much see it quickly
Hmm.
now. I think we can. But I don't, I live my life like the golden rule. It's very simple. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. And don't bullshit people. And your bullshit meter gets fairly attuned to other people doing it to you.
Hmm.
And it's like I can instantly go, okay, I can see what you're doing. And, nice meeting you. Bye bye. Just being honest in your work situation, in your human situation, in your relationship situation, just be honest. That's the best thing you can do. Be yourself.
Hmm.
There, there, there are too many other people out there trying to be something else other than themselves. You can't possibly be all of those other people.
Hmm.
And you can't expect to be everything for everybody. You're never going to please everybody.
Hmm.
As many amazing, wonderful people that I have had in my career out there who have followed me over the years and have hopefully liked a lot of things that I've done creatively as an artist.
Hmm.
There's still people that will slam you, that
Hmm.
will look at you and go, what's with the hair getting kind of gray, isn't it? You're looking kind of old there. What's with this stuff? And it's
Well,
like,
that's gonna be
oh.
my next thing. For like, obviously, like the business and it has changed for all of us. Where before there was this sort of mystery as performers, where whether you're a musician or an artist, where like there wasn't that accessibility. And when you saw your like artist or you saw your actor, there was almost a euphoria around it, where you're like, oh my god. And then now because of social media, where it's allowed people to connect with their artists and their favorite actor and whatever, and follow their careers, but also there's the dark side of social media that we live in now. How do you, obviously being a public figure and having such a wild world fan base, how do you deal with in those situations the trolls, the people that want to talk shit, and use the social media platforms for those type of purposes? How do you deal with that?
I don't really deal with it. I keep myself separated from it
Okay.
because I want to gravitate to the people that are positive, that are creative, that are putting out a harmonious vibe into the world
Hmm.
rather than talking behind somebody's back, coming up with a bunch of criticisms for somebody. If I have a criticism for somebody, I'll keep it to myself. I'll keep it
Hmm.
to myself unless they ask me, Ron, could you give me a critique of this or tell me what you think of this? And then I'll give them my opinion. Otherwise,
Hmm.
I just keep it to myself because it's not relevant to have to go online and criticize anybody for anything. I don't see the
Hmm.
purpose in all that. I like to put out a positive vibe in pretty much everything I do. If you have something bad to say, shut the fuck up.
And that's the thing. Me and Sean Kanan, we talked about it, in the fact that people are so desperate to find their 50 minutes of fame. And when you got places, for example, like Twitter and even just various social media platforms where, we've been, and we talked about it, before, in how the world has become this divide, between good and bad, almost like a superhero, or like wrestling. You've got your villains and you've got your baby faces, and then where people have now been given this opportunity to express their opinions when you didn't ask for it. and say these negative things. And exactly that, I'm just like, my whole thing is that if you got shit to say to me, like you don't like Ron, you don't like me, you don't like what we do, you don't like my face, you don't like his face. There's two options. You can either click on follow, problem solved, or you can meet me in the street. like you can meet me in the street and we could talk about this. We could talk about this, but I feel that like now everybody has, a lot of people use these platforms that to me like were yes, we couldn't be doing what me and you are doing right now 10, 15 years ago. But in many aspects, to you, do you feel, especially in our business, do you feel that social media has hurt the business or made it better?
I think both. I think it has provided a platform for people to communicate more, but I also feel that social media has become a huge and totally engrossing distraction from life. I feel that people have gotten so involved in the social media and the phones and the stuff that they have lost
communication, real communication,
being aware of the life around them and real human contact. Many people are not comfortable with that anymore. They just want to be online texting and emailing and going on Instagram and stuff. It's a platform for, yes, communication like we're doing now, which I think is great. And we can share it with a lot of people out there. Someone said, no cursing, Ron. It was funny. I saw that.
This is Hot Topics. Everything is off the record, so he can do what he wants on the show.
But I think it's a huge distraction. A distraction from what's going on in the world. It makes people less aware. In one way, you can become more aware of what's going on, but another way, you become engrossed in the surfacey stuff of social media. Just what does somebody look like? What are they wearing? What celebrities doing this? I'm not a fan of that. And yes, I'm one of those people that people may have looked at in that way, but I don't propose it. I don't recommend that. I don't even recommend people listening to a celebrity for different things because,
like politics and shit.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what's really going on, but we get to where we listen to somebody just because they're popular or they're a celebrity, and it doesn't mean that their attitude is right. So you have both between social media. You have the distraction element, and you have a possibility of a wonderful new communication opening up, which what you're doing right here. You have your own podcast, and we're able to share some things with people, and they can take it. They can synthesize it however they want, but don't always make it so important.
Well, that's the thing. People have, I think, have a tendency to value their own importance a little bit too much, like to think that they are too important and their opinions matter more than anybody else's, or that, or
we all know people like that, don't we?
Exactly. And for guys who are just tuning in, welcome to another edition of Hot Topics Celeb TV, episode number 34. I'm your host, D. Teflon on the MIC, with the legendary, infamous Ron Moss, some player, and the bold and the beautiful. Don't forget, you can check us out each and every Sunday here for Sunday service in conversation with Hollywood actors, producers, and directors. Each and every Tuesday night, Hot Topics After Dark. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out the website, HotTopicsCelebTV.com. Check out dteflon.com for the replay. Also, you can follow me at dteflon, and you can also follow at Ron Moss on Instagram and Facebook and all social media platforms. So for you, Ron, like, what would you say has been, in the 26 years of being an actor on TV and the decades that you've been a musician, what would you say for you has been, first, as an actor, your greatest achievement, also when it comes to Bold and the Beautiful, your most memorable scene? So we'll start with those first two questions.
Biggest achievement? Boy. Professionally or just in life?
As an actor.
As an actor. Being able to keep humble, being able to keep my sanity throughout being involved in this business. Two very different squirrely businesses, music and acting, theater stuff. You can get really crazy doing those kind of things. And I feel like I've kept a semblance of normalcy through all of it. I don't go, oh, I did this movie or I did this TV show and that's my greatest accomplishment. I'm always looking ahead to the next thing. I'm hoping that I can transcend the success, the wonderful success that I personally had with Bold and Beautiful. I'm hoping I can transcend that and do other things that are wonderfully creative and inspiring as well. And one of those things that I wanted to tell you was this movie that we're planning to do, which is kind of what all this is about.
Okay.
And up until 2 days ago, my hair was very long. I just recently cut it. I was letting it grow and looking pretty gnarly because it's a Western that we're going to be doing called Trailblazers.
Is that the one with Antonio
Sabato Jr.?
Yeah.
And he's one of the writers and the producer of this movie. And we're getting a very wonderful, eclectic cast of friends in Hollywood together to do this, and we're looking forward to it. So
when do you guys start shooting that?
We're hoping for the end of this year.
Okay.
We're hoping to have everything, all the ducks lined up to have all of our stuff we need. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be an old-fashioned Western, and we're all gearing up for the characters that we're going to be playing. It's
you got a whole Kirk Russell Tombstone vibe going on right now.
It's my girls go, Dad, you got to keep this stuff. You got to go. I don't know if I can.
See, I like the mustache. I like the mustache. I don't
know.
The mustache.
I don't know how long I can keep it. I can always grow it back when we finally get to the movie. But I was testing and doing. So people are probably looking at me going, "What the hell happened to him?"
Listen, if you cut off the beard, you might have a good porn career because you know, like
just leave the mustache.
An 80s porn star look, man. You know, but for you, biggest accomplishment as an actor. But what would you say has been for you the most memorable scene that you had on Bold and the Beautiful? I mean, I know I've got my top 3, but I want to hear yours.
I have not retained most of the 25 years of scenes. Sometimes I've watched flashbacks that when I was on the show, we'd watch flashbacks and I go, I don't even remember filming that. That's so far in the mix there. So there are several, but one that comes to mind was the elevator where Brooke and Ridge are stuck, and we wound up having to strip down to our underwear because we can't get out of the elevator, and it's hot, and we're both sweaty, and it was both romantic, it was erotic, and it was fun to do with her. And then, of course, when the door finally opens and we both spill out onto the floor, who's standing looking over me but Taylor? She's like, what? What's going? And it was a very cute scene. But there have been so many over the 25 years. I wish I could remember all of them. But I leave that to everybody else. I let everybody else, they come up and tell me their favorite scene, and that's what matters most to me, is how did it affect everybody else? Because for me to retain all that, like I told you, when I walk out of the studio, I can't tell you one thing I did that day. It's like I let it all go, and I have mentally let go of so much over the years. Just I'm trying to keep my hard drive a little open so that maybe I have a couple of gigs left as the years go on. I'm not going to be spouting dialogue from B&B and the old folks actors home someday, even though I know it's all up there. It's in there. But I try to sort of categorize it into a different place. But
For you being obviously the set, like having that career, I know obviously for many actors, you know, like us in the business where we want to spread our wings. I know, like, even for example, like Eric Braeden, when he started, you know, it was only supposed to be like a couple of weeks and obviously turned into, you know, 40 plus years. Did you ever at any point like want to, because obviously, as I said, doing the same thing every day over and over again, and us being artists, we're not used to being in that box because, as you say, you know, we're constantly looking for the next challenge or the next door opening. You know, we use one wheel to open up another wheel to open up another wheel. So for you, like being on the show, did you ever want to branch out at any time when you were on that show, or feel that, like, you know what, like maybe it's come to a point where, like, I don't want to do this, I maybe want to step into prime time? Like, did you ever have that inclination to want to do that?
of course, many times over the course of 25 years. Many times, and I would have to. The only thing with a show like Bold and Beautiful is there's a process involved in doing it, and you have to give them time. You have to give them notice before you take time off to do another project. So it was not easy to do that, but it was possible. I would just go through the process, give them notice, give them time to write me out in a certain way and make it work, because it's not about making their life more difficult. It's about making it so everybody works together really well, crew, actors, everybody, and being courteous, being thoughtful, and all. So that planning that went into it did happen, and was able to do a handful of projects over the course of those years that were very nice projects that I loved doing.
So I had this question in retrospect to that, because I had, you know, Sarah Joy Brown and Doug Davison on last week, and Sean the week before, and I asked them the same question I'm going to ask you, is that, you know, in your experience, obviously working in daytime, working in prime time, working in film, and with you, there's a difference because you have, like me, the extra added bonus of as well being in music. What would you say the difference is for you in your experience as an actor between daytime and prime time, and your differences in preparation between working in daytime, film, and prime time and music? Your preparations are differences.
Very different preparations, very different. And that's what separates out the daytime genre, is you have no prep time. You have to do it instantly. You have to do it so quick that most people crash and burn. And it's a very different beast. At nighttime, you have a certain amount of time to absorb the script and to work on the script and maybe rehearse and go and do some things for an hour and a half project, whatever it happens to be. Not with what we do every day with the TV series. It's so. I have seen the reaction. I'll give you a quick one. A guy named John Philip Law,
Okay.
wonderful actor from movies, came on to The Young and Restless for a few weeks.
Okay.
As a guest to them years ago. And he came into our dressing room, our makeup room in the morning one time, and he had a look of shock on his face. He was blown away.
Okay.
He was just stunned. And I walked up to him with, that's John Philip Law. I went up and introduced myself and said, hello, I'm good to meet you. And he goes, I don't know how you guys do this. He'd been on for 2 weeks. He went, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how you guys do this all the time. It's too much. It's just too much. I'm sitting next to Michael Madsen on a plane, and he looks over at me. He goes, "How many pages you guys do a day?" I went anywhere from 20 to 50 sometimes.
I still don't know how you do it, man.
And he's just looking at me going, 3 pages a day. That's my world. 3 pages a day. And he's just shaking his head like it's unbelievable. And it is unbelievable. It's a different
Beast.
mindset. It's a different beast totally. But I loved it. I loved it. And I got my brain acclimated to it. We were a big family on Bold and Beautiful, which made it so much more pleasant than it would have been. I can't imagine being on a show where people don't get along with each other and don't have a real camaraderie. I think a lot of shows do have that, but it was extra special on Bold and Beautiful. And that's what I miss most. People ask me all the time, "Do you miss doing the show?" And I go, "No, I don't. But I miss the people I worked with. Most of all, I miss that family that we had." And I'm talking crew as well. Crew and production and everybody. I miss them very much. And it's a very special thing that I'll never forget. I'm very grateful. I feel blessed.
So I mean, obviously you shocked the world when you made that decision to leave. What was it that made you say to yourself, it's time? Like, what was the deciding moment or factor for you that made you make that decision? Because I was even shocked by it.
It surprised me too, and I'm gonna put most of it on an accident that Devin and I had a couple of weeks before I had to leave. My contract was up, yes, and I had to make a decision of staying or not for another couple of years. And we were in this accident that really, literally and symbolically, turned me around and put me in a different direction. It injured both of us in such a way. Maybe the brunt of it was my injury, but it made me, because I hit my head really hard and fractured my shoulder and all, I couldn't remember. I instantly could not remember as much stuff as before. And I didn't know if this was going to be permanent or temporary. I had lost all the strength in my left hand from hitting my shoulder.
Wow.
And from hitting my head, my memory pretty much went away. Now I can remember who you are and all that, but amount of dialogue, no, it had gone away. And it scared me because I didn't know.
That would be super scary, man.
I didn't know if it would be permanent, and I just took a symbol that had happened to me, and I went, maybe this is a message saying I need to do something else. Now, for me personally, I wish I had communicated all this stuff to everybody on the show more. I didn't. I'm not one of those people that airs out their dirty laundry. I'm not one of these people that goes and whinges and moans about whatever.
No, you're like me, man. I mean, when I
don't tell people when I'm in pain. They don't usually know that. I keep it to myself, and I did the same for the people on the show. So they didn't know what I was having to deal with. And I wish in hindsight that I had been a little more upfront and revealing to them, to go, guys, I'm really having a hard time here. I think I'm going to have to take some time off. I don't know how long a time, but I need some time off. And I wish especially I had said this to Brad Bell, who was the executive producer and writer of our show. Then I wish I had said to him, Brad, I really need to take some time. I don't know how long, but I need to take some time to see if I'm going to heal from this or not. And I've neglected to do that. So for their perspective, it just looked like I was going to stop in 2 weeks. And I wasn't giving any real explanation for why. And it wasn't just because I was tired of doing the show and didn't want to go on. I was just very confused and in a very black little place in my life right then. So in hindsight, 2020 vision of what we could have, should have, would have done.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a big reason why I decided I think I better take this time and go do something else, if I'm even able to do something else now.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go.
No, and I think that is the thing that we deal with in this business, where people think that you come into a sense of invincibility, and when it's something, I mean, obviously you know my history with my brain surgery and stuff like that, and I remember when I returned to work, maybe it was like 2 weeks after, and I had like this big ass hat over my head, but nobody knew that underneath that big ass hat I had like bandages all wrapped around my head. And this is where I go back to the business where I talk about people, is that the industry, it's not, I don't think it's really the fact of, number one, that, of not wanting to communicate, but in our business, the business doesn't give a shit. Like, they don't give a shit whether you're sick or injured or hurt. Like, and you also just don't want to, put yourself out there as weak or as a victim, in these circumstances. So and as you know, like in our business, the old saying, the show must go on. And I think that's where it comes down to people who have dealt with physical and situations like myself and like yourself, where, I mean, even take Chadwick Boseman. I mean, he was dying of cancer, and he was putting out, I mean, you would have never known in Black Panther and all the different movies that he was doing that anything was wrong. And it wasn't until the end where people were like, wait a minute, he's got cancer? Because some people, they find the fuel where you're like, exactly what you said. Like, for me, I know it was, I mean, I've had near-death situations, but I think, you take a really perspective, when people ask me, like, where the Teflon comes from. And I say to people, it's like, if you've known what the fuck I've been through in my life, you would understand where that came from. And I think when we're in the business for so long, and as you said, at day